podcast, where we share stories and strategies from the game's most fascinating minds. No matter where you are in your poker journey, there's always something new to learn. So let's get right into this week's episode.
Welcome back to the Red Chip Poker Podcast. I'm Zach Shaw, and today we have a very special episode. We're going to give you a sneak peek into Core 2.0. That will be launching in just a couple days, and stay tuned for more information on that and a forthcoming episode detailing all of the great stuff in Core 2.0. But one of the greatest things in there is our new Core Tournaments course. It's a complete course with video, text, quizzes, everything you need to step from the early stages of a tournament down to the final table, and it's being taught by WSOP bracelet winner Chris Fox Wallace, who joins us today. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing great. My window's open. It's about 90 degrees. I've got a cool drink in front of me. Life is good.
Beautiful. And that's what a lot of us are doing around the country and around the world right now. It's a great time to be sitting at home and getting better at poker and studying more. We were just talking before we started recording about how online tournaments have just flourished in this environment. And so it seems like your course is coming at a good time. You were just telling me that you know of people who are experiencing some of the juiciest action that they've experienced in a long time, right?
Yeah, the online games are amazing. I've been playing a lot on WSOP.com, playing a lot of tournaments, and the action there is really good. And I know a lot of people who play on the various apps, and they're making a lot of money. If you're not taking this time off from poker, where all the live poker rooms are closed, to study hard and improve your game and come back a lot stronger and play some of these online games, you're really missing out, because this is see this as an opportunity instead of as a roadblock.
Absolutely. We got a guy on the team who is coming back to poker after 10 years being away. He just couldn't resist getting into these games. And in terms of your history, I mentioned you've won a bracelet, and that's a rare thing. I don't think we've interviewed maybe one other person who's won a bracelet. But what's your background? You specialize in tournaments, right?
I have kind of poker ADD. I've kind of done it all because I get bored with things. So when I started, I played sit and goes and a little bit of cash and some limit hold'em. I'm from Minnesota, where limit hold'em is the thing. And I played on the very first online poker site, Planet Poker, and played mostly 1-2 limit hold'em. And I just decided I had a career that I was building as a guitar builder, a luthier, and I developed an allergy to the exotic hardwoods that I was working with, and it almost killed me a couple times. And it was time to go back to doing something else, and my career was just gone in an instant. And I decided I was going to play poker for a living, and I had never even played a hand of Texas Hold'em yet. So I got all the books I could get, studied hard, and 6 months, drove a cab for 6 months because I didn't know what else to do. And 6 months later, I quit my job because I was making too much money playing poker to go to work. So I played, and then, by that time, Party Poker was up and rolling, and I started playing on all those online sites and bonus whoring like crazy, and switched to no limit, and then I switched to sit and goes, and then I switched to tournaments, and then I bounced back to mixed games. And mixed games were really my thing the last 3 or 4 years of the full tilt boom. That was the most money I've made in my life, was the couple years before Black Friday, when the mixed games were really good, and really cut my teeth there. And then after Black Friday, I hit the road and played cash games and tournaments on the road, worked for a poker tour, did some other poker-related things, and wrote columns for a number of poker magazines, rebuilt my bankroll after Black Friday. And I've always sold a little action in the World Series of Poker. And in 2014, I decided I should sell more action and play a little bigger. I had a friend who really encouraged me and said, hey, if you want to sell a bunch of action, I'll buy 10,000 of it. So I put together a big package that included the 10K horse event and won it. And it was a life-changing experience for me. Not necessarily financially. I had sold a little more than half my action, and I had to pay taxes. And then I took a big vacation, and, you don't win a bracelet and then suddenly you're wealthy for the rest of your life. It kind of doesn't work that way. But in terms of, never having a chip on my shoulder again, if somebody's not convinced that I can play after I win the 10K horse, they're just not ever going to be convinced. And also kind of that left me to just play for the money. I just want to make a living now and be happy, and I don't need to prove anything to anyone. or play for respect. And playing for respect and trying to prove that I was good is a mistake that I made in much of my early career, and it's a mistake that I see constantly from my students. But if I do this, people will think that I'm terrible, or this guy pissed me off because he told people that I wasn't good. And I tell people, look, I encourage people to think that I'm not good. That's what you should be doing. You don't want people to think you're good. If you're serious about making money, respect is not important, and you can get respect in other ways in your life. So then I moved to Vegas in late 2015. Kind of had places in Vegas and Minnesota for a while, and then 2017 I got rid of my place in Minnesota. I just wasn't going home very often. It's too cold, and if it's not cold, there are mosquitoes, and I didn't like that. So now I bought a house in Vegas, and I love it here. I'm very happy.
Wow, that's an incredible story and some serious poker pedigree. And like you were saying, there's this whole culture in poker about having to prove something, or saying, "Oh, this guy's no good, and I'm better than them." And the truth is that, a lot of those players aren't the winning players. And you must see, rubbing shoulders with all these people who play in the WSOP or in the games you play, many downfalls to players who could all otherwise be winning players. Like, what does it take to actually make it all the way through a tournament, to play, as much as you have, and just grinded it out and never stopped and kept going? What are the traits that you have that other people don't?
I think they're almost all developed traits. They're not like things that you're born with. I don't believe there's a lot of innate talent for poker necessarily, though. The things that cause you to learn are the real talent. The real talent in life in general is drive and the interest in learning things. Those are, in almost any profession, those are the things that get you there. And I think what gets me through tournaments and what's allowed me to be successful is, very early on playing online tournaments, my pal Adam and I used to kind of be on the phone talking during tournaments and talking about strategy. And, it was way before the days of Skype, and it was way before the days of any fear of collusion. We were in these, events with 3,000 people in them on Party Poker, and most of the time we weren't even in the same event, but we would talk strategy. And, we started talking about being tenacious. Tenacious was like the word we used all the time. I was in the middle of my first ever 10K, the Bay 101 Shooting Star many years ago, and having a tough time. And he just walked by and said tenacious, and it like snapped me back into, oh, that's right. Never punt. Always play your best. We can't give this thing up. We already paid our entry fee. All we can do from here is play our very best poker, and that makes it a lot easier for me to play really well in tournaments than in cash games. In cash games, I can punt off this money and just pull more out of my pocket, and it's it feels like it's a little easier to not care about cash games. But in tournaments, as the tension builds and you get later in the tournament, you just have to stay focused all the time. And I think that ability to stay focused, and also having played so much online and worked at training sites and worked with so many of the best pros and worked with so many students, now it's kind of ingrained in my head which things I can and cannot do with which stack sizes, which is a lot of the focus of this course. When I'm playing online these days, I have a friend who Skypes in and watches me play, and I talk to him about what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And we talk a lot about stack sizes, and now he's used to, oh, you can't make that play because you have 21 big blinds. And, you can't open shove 21 big blinds from the cutoff, and you can't raise and then fold. So you're just going to fold here, right? And he gets it. So that stack size stuff is super important. And I think a lot of live players take a long time to get there, whereas online players are kind of used to seeing things that way, especially if they've been part of a training site. So that's a big thing that I focused on in the course.
Right. You talk a lot about seeing things in terms of big blinds, and I definitely picked up on that when I made the transition from cash to more tournament play, and that you actually start the course talking about that transition. I think we got a lot of people who are listening who are primarily cash game players. So what types of things besides the big blind issue would people really want to hone in on that is a different strategic consideration in tournaments as opposed to cash games?
I did really focus on assuming that most people who are watching the course are coming over from cash games, because Red Chip has been, the best place to learn about mid-level cash games for so long, and there's so many good cash game players on the site that I figured this isn't going to be tournament beginners. This is going to be people who know cash games and they want to learn about the differences. So I focused a lot on those, and the biggest difference is the shorter stacks. That's why you have to play knowing what your big blinds are and also how many big blinds all your opponents have. So a cash game player has no idea what to do with 18 big blinds, right? When I play cash all the time until recently, and I never play an 18 big blind stack. I never have to worry about it. But in a tournament, you have to know how to play it because you're going to be there a lot. And you have to know how to play 7 big blinds, and you have to know how to play 30 big blinds, and you have to know how to play 50 big blinds when your opponent has 14 big blinds. And that's what keeps tournaments interesting for me. There's that constant changing situations. You'll never be in the same situation twice, and it's always interesting. So that learning to play small and mid stacks and how to play against small and mid stacks, and then also the bubble and in the money, that's something you don't deal with in cash games. Every chip in a cash game is worth exactly what it says on the chip. And in a tournament, that changes constantly. If you got a really big stack, each of your chips is worth significantly less. If you have a really small stack on the bubble, each of those chips is worth way more. So both not going broke on the bubble and also crushing the bubble and attacking people who are being too timid are really important strategies that you would just never pick up in a cash game.
Right. These are great themes that I see throughout your course, and it really trains the student, I would hope, to see tournaments in that light, through that lens, and not have to have that be sort of a conscious process. I mean, through experience, we learn how to make these things intuitive, but the way you explain it, it's just so simple and accessible. And I'm kind of curious, putting this together, it's a big course. How did you translate all of these, strategic thoughts into the course? I know you've had students in the past, but how did you make that transition from player to coach?
I started writing a blog on pocketfives.com in like 2004, 2005. I saw that they had some bloggers, and I was kind of reading things about online poker, and they were one of the best places to read about it. And back in those days, they were one of the few places you could read about it. So I was playing $30 sit and goes for a living. I had just quit my job, and I asked them if they wanted a blogger who was, playing kind of grinding it out kind of thing, because back then it was a lot of like 25, 50 no limit players who were playing the biggest stakes in the world at the time online, and they said sure. So I started writing, and most people who write blogs don't write very often, and most of these big high limit players weren't writing much, and I was writing all the time. And so it kind of turned into a regular writing gig for me, writing for Pocket Fives. Had a ton of readers for a while on that blog, and then got an offer from, which magazine was it? I think it was Deal magazine. One of the poker magazines in the early days wanted me to write articles for them, so I wrote one. And the money was absurd at first in the writing about online poker at the beginning of the boom, because there were so few people who could write and also play poker and had any knowledge, strategic knowledge, and there was so much demand for it. And I was getting paid. I have a number of friends who are best-selling authors and serious professional writers, and I had never sold anything, and suddenly I was getting 10 times what they were getting for stories or more, because the poker industry was just paying so much. So that kind of turned into writing about the game. And since I'd always written about the game in my blog and in magazines and quantified what I was doing, I started with one of the very early startup poker training sites, made a few videos for them, and then started my own site with my business partner. And we just started teaching people. We kept the price low. We just wanted a lot of people to come into the forum and see the things we had to offer. And that made me a much better player. Teaching really makes you better. And it just snowballed from there. We sold our site to another site and I worked for them. I went to different magazines. I wrote a column for Bluff magazine for a long time, for Poker Pro magazine, and worked with a number of training sites and started picking up a lot of individual students. Toward the end of the online days before Black Friday, I was turning down students because I had so many student requests. When I can pull up your poker tracker stats and you have 100,000 hands. I can tell you all the holes in your game very quickly. I can really, the process is so efficient. A good coach using a large sample of hands in poker trackers should be able to make you better very quickly. It's much harder work with live players. It takes a lot longer, but I was good at it. It was a thing that came kind of naturally to me, more so than poker did. And so I started doing a lot of teaching. I still really enjoy teaching, though there aren't as many students these days because there aren't as many people playing online poker. And live poker players are all already really good. You just ask them and they'll tell you, so they don't need any lessons. But that's kind of how it turned into teaching for me. And I discovered I really liked making training content. I've developed a lot of web domains over the years, and so the technology stuff is very comfortable for me. And I have been considering for years a book about the zones that I talk about in the course. I've just thought this is one of the big keys to poker tournaments, and it's a thing people don't talk about in the right way. And I wrote a book, I don't know, 10 years ago now on cash games. And I started working on this tournament book and just kind of never got around to putting it out because there's no money in poker books these days. There's really, even the best selling ones just don't sell very much. So when Redchip approached me with this idea of making a big course and taking people through kind of a virtual tournament, I jumped on it right away. This is the thing I've been wanting to do. I've been wanting to do this for a long time, and other training sites I've worked with and other things I've built. I just couldn't do a project of this size and teach everything all at once in this kind of format. And so I was ecstatic that Redchip was willing to do this, willing to pay me to do the thing I've been wanting to do for a long time. It's really valuable stuff. And I actually had a friend 2 nights ago mention there were like 4 of us in a backyard eating tacos, and one of them was a neighbor who didn't really know much about poker. And I said, yeah, he's a professional poker player. He's very good. And he said, this guy's a poker player and he's very good, but the problem is he makes everybody else better and ruins it for the rest of us. And he was kidding mostly, but it's sort of true as well. I've definitely played against people who told me how much better I made them, and I could see the difference. And so, I'm aware that I'm making the games tougher for myself in some ways.
Yeah, that's right. Well, that's always the double-edged sword. And I mean, I think I speak for everyone on the Redchip team and also all of our core members and our future core members. We're the lucky ones to have this content, and it's exciting to hear that this was something you were super excited about. It comes through, and it, particularly, like you said, when you're referring to the zones, you're referring to certain player types. That structured, approach really comes through. You can tell that you've really formulated these things over a long period of time. Good blend of video, of hand analysis, of strategic concepts. And I want our listeners to know, when we first planned this out, we were preparing to go into the WSOP, obviously, and we wanted to kind of simulate a run from the early stage to the final table. So that's kind of how you structured it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I, because I was creating the hand histories myself, while it's a lot of work, it made for great training content. And I was able to set it up so that I can get really short at some point and teach people that playing 5 big blinds or less is not about push fold, and show people, I think that's maybe the most revolutionary video of the 22 or 23 videos there are. It's something people don't much talk about, and it's something that like serious pros really all understand, but that hasn't been taught much, is that playing 4 big blinds is not about push fold. There are a bunch of other concepts involved that are really powerful. And I was able to set it up so that I played, 18 big blinds a number of times, so we could talk about the re-steal zone and take people through all those different things. And then I was both short on the bubble and had a bunch of chips on the bubble soon after, so that I could crush the bubble and talk about bubble crushing and how important it is. And so that was really... It was great to be able to design all the hand histories rather than just take a tournament I played and narrate the hands and talk about what I was doing. To design all the hand histories let me create all the situations where I could use these things to teach. And having a project of this scope allowed me to teach the entire concept. It was a problem I had when I wrote my book. Initially, I had to bring in my co-author because I didn't know what to do with this thing once I had a bunch of stuff written. Because how do you teach people how to play pre-flop if they don't know how to read their opponents? They don't know who these people are or what they've been doing. They don't understand stack sizes. They don't understand implied odds and pot odds. They don't understand the value of 3-betting and 4. You have to teach like every concept to teach any concept. It all works together so much. And that's even more true in tournaments because you have to add in the stack sizes to all those things. So having a project of this scope, I was able to teach everything. And that was really, I think that's really important. That's why I have the characters that I'm playing against. If I can't teach hand reading if you want hand reading in a vacuum. Like what is this guy? Someone raises and someone 4-bets, someone 3-bets and someone 4-bets. What are their ranges? I don't know. Who are these people? Whereas in the course, it's I raise and a guy with a backpack on his chair re-raises and old man coffee calls. What are their ranges? Now we can talk about their ranges, right? Now I know the guy with the backpack on his chair and who he is, and we talk about who these people are in the video. All the various opponents that we face, we talk about who they are, what motivates them and how they work, and then what their ranges are like. And so when we're breaking down ranges, we say, old man coffee will have this kind of range in this situation. And then later, Nice Nelly will have this kind of range in the same situation, and accurately teach hand reading rather than just kind of trying to talk about combinatorics and lead people the wrong direction where they suddenly have a really tight player on a really loose range because of GTO-wise, it would be smart for this guy to have a loose range here. Now that was really helpful to have the big scope of the project so I could do all of that at once.
Yeah, it's amazing how you managed to hit that balance between highly technical and in-depth and detailed, and yet totally accessible and intuitive and structured in a way that it can be easily assimilated. And it also is the perfect capstone to core, because if you do want to get more into that granular study of specific tactics and strategies, well, you got the whole level 1 and the level 2, which is going to be completely updated in this core 2.0 version. So plenty of opportunities if you're taking the tournaments course to bone up on some of those other finer points. And it's just thrilling to follow you along in this simulated tournament. I can almost picture you playing at the WSOP, getting down to the final table. And I kind of want to ask you about that, just out of personal curiosity. It seems like a lot of people prepare for the general transition to tournaments in terms of looking at things in big blinds, ICM, etc. But I know that, personally speaking, when I get to the final table, when I get down to the last 2 or 3 players, I realize that this is a situation that I've been in very seldom, and I need to develop those skills. So what are some of the things that you want to be thinking of when you are shorthanded at the final table?
There is definitely a reason why the same people tend to win tournaments so often. Once you've been in that position a bunch of times, you get much better at it. It's very hard to do the first few times. I think the most important thing to do once you start to get deep like that is just be focused on making logical decisions according to the money. It's a time when it's very easy to let your emotions run away with you. It's very easy to be frustrated, to not think long enough, to stop, breathe, think, and make a decision logically according to the money, and don't worry about how that decision makes you feel. That is a hard thing to do, but it is the way to win poker tournaments. And the key things to remember when you start to get shorthanded is to know how everybody else is feeling. Really getting good at poker, especially in live poker, but it's true online as well. To be really good, you have to be able to instantly put yourself in the other person's seat and see through their eyes. And if I have a middle stack to my left and I have a big stack and there's a very short stack to his left, I know that I can raise my button every hand. That unless I'm worried about that short stack being so short that he's going to get it in really wide, I know I can raise a ton of hands. And if there's an even shorter stack, say that we're 5-handed and there's a guy on my right with 8 big blinds, and there's a guy on my left who's a backpack with 20 big blinds, and there's a guy on his left with 12 big blinds, I know that the 20 big blinds doesn't want to go out before the other 2. The 12 big blinds doesn't want to go out before the 8 big blinds, because now we're 5-handed and there's big money jumps. And the guy with 8 big blinds is already folded, so I can raise any 2. I'm raising 100% of hands in that situation until one of my opponents on my left gives me a reason not to. And I have to be able to see through their eyes to know that, you know, if there's some aggressive maniac on my left or some pro who's just not afraid at all. You know, I played with Ben Lamb quite a bit with less than 40 people left in the main event a few years ago. And he just was constantly on the attack and did not care if he went broke. He wanted to win the tournament and he didn't care. And that approach was so different from almost everyone else. Even other players who I knew were serious pros weren't fearless like he was. They cared about the money jumps and he just didn't. That is the big difference. And it takes a little experience to get to that point. But once you get there, your success rate just skyrockets. And so you have to be able to recognize, you know, if that guy with 20 big blinds on my left is Ben Lamb, I can't raise hardly any hands on the button because he knows I'm raising the button. He's in the re-steal zone. He's going to jam all the time. So he might jam 90% of the time over my open raises from the button and I can't raise anything. Whereas if he's a regular kind of circuit grinder with a backpack on his chair, his backer might be watching, the money might really mean something to him, he doesn't want to go out next, you know, then I can raise 100% of hands. Knowing your opponents, you know, changes from raising your top 5 or 10% to raising 100% just by knowing the difference between two opponents, both of whom are even poker pros. And I think that's the biggest key, is knowing who these people are and how they're thinking and how they feel about their stack size and their situation and what their ranges are likely to be.
Right. Just talking to you, you're taking me there. I'm picturing myself at the final table trying to read all my opponents. So, yeah, you're just a really compelling teacher, and we're so lucky to have you contributing to Core 2.0. And really, this is the big addition. Like you said, 23 videos. We got quizzes, new achievements to earn. So I encourage anyone out there who's listening to go visit redchippoker.com/edge. That's where you can sign up for Core. And like we said, new episode coming in a couple days that fills you in on all of the new items in that new product. And we hope that you tune into that. And I got to say, once again, thank you to Chris Fox Wallace. Thank you, sir, for I know we just scratched the surface here, but if people would like to know more about you or get in touch, are there ways to do that?
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at FoxPokerFox. That's probably the easiest. Or blindstraddle@gmail.com. I do a lot of photography, so I have a photography website, but I don't have a personal blog anymore. I just didn't have time to write in it. When is Core 2.0 for cash coming out? I'm going to actually go through it.
So we're going to be launching on May 14th, both the live cash new course, which you'll hear more about in a couple of days on our announcement podcast, and also includes your tournaments course and some other surprises that we'll save for next time to tell you about.
Cool. I'm always studying. Always. I've been a student of the game since the very beginning, and it never stops. I swap lessons with other coaches sometimes, and I will definitely go through the Core 2.0 course. From what I read about it, it looks awesome, the cash game part of it, and I'm sure I'll pick up some things.
Sweet. We'll compare notes, and I'm sure there'll be lots of questions coming in and lots of good feedback, so we'll share that with you as well and with our audience. And yeah, thanks again for stopping by the podcast, and hope to have you back talking about another bracelet sometime.
Me too. Thank you for all the kind words. I'll come back anytime.
Awesome. And that link, once again, is redchippoker.com/edge. And until next time, this is Zach Shaw for the Red Chip Poker Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode. But don't stop learning now. Head over to redchippoker.com. You'll find everything you need to get better today. Join our free, friendly strategy group and start talking poker with our coaches and community. And listen, if you're ready to take poker more seriously, sign up for Core, our $5 a week complete training platform built for players who have limited time to study. Core is packed with over 100 bite-sized lessons from the fundamentals to advanced strategies. quizzes, achievements, discussion threads, and more. And for the bravest of heart, we invite you to check out our Pro membership, which includes 24/7 access to hundreds of videos, all of our playlists, all of our crash courses, and more. If you want to see what the top 1% of players are studying to keep their edges razor sharp, visit redchippoker.com/Ruby. That's RUBY, and get a special deal on your first 3 weeks. Until next time, run good, play better, and get there.